That's a fact. You know what? If you're also a content creator, you can use
Hey,
a new hardware device. So,
hey.
AVerMedia. I was so excited about that segue. Let me just pat myself on the back real quick. Um, so this next article is from GameRant, and it is Anthony Taromina. Taromina. Hopefully, pronounced the name correctly. It's posted about a week ago, and GameRant's hardware reviews. So he went ahead and reviewed the AVerMedia Live Gamer ULTRA 2.1 and the 4K PCIe capture cards for the review. So AVerMedia is one of the first to deliver an HDMI 2.1 external capture card that meets the promise of high frame rates and resolutions with no downside. So while most video game capture technology has reached a certain level of parity, there are still a few front runners or frontiers left for leaders in the space to aim for. For some, it's a display port capture, but most content creators have been waiting for the capture card that supports HDMI 2.1 in order to get the most of the current gen gameplay experience, regardless of whether they are in PC or console. AVerMedia is the first to answer that call to the Live Gamer ULTRA 2.1 external USB-C capture card. And just recently, the company has also announced an AVerMedia Live Gamer 4K 2.1, a PCIe HDMI 2.1 capture card. So I just hit people with a lot of nomenclature. Let me dumb it down for you. HDMI 2.1 is essentially what your Xbox Series X needs. I think the Series S as well, and the PS5 needs to get like 4K, high resolution and high frame rates on monitors and TVs. If you don't have an HDMI 2.1 on your monitor or TV, you're kind of limiting yourself to what kind of quality you can get from your console. Do you think that's like a pretty accurate
Yeah,
description, Kyle?
I like that.
So between the two capture cards, you have one that connects through USB, which is the external capture card. That's the Live Gamer ULTRA 2.1 external USB-C capture card. And then the other one is the one that goes in the slot in your motherboard in the other slot of where your like GPU would go,
Yeah.
your PCIe slot. And that will use a 4K pass-through 2.1 capture card. I actually have a 4K capture card. It's not a HDMI 2.1. It is the AVerMedia Live Gamer 4K. It's like I forgot the exact. Maybe it's model number 513. I got it like 4 years ago now, and it's similar to the Elgato one. It has better performance in a lot of different categories. However, it costs a little bit more. So AVerMedia is a good, like I'll brag on them. Like I use their stuff all the time. I think they're a good product when you can get it on sale
Yeah.
because it's diminishing returns if you get it at full price. When they drop the sale, which they do often, and it becomes about equal to like Elgato, they have capture cards or they have webcams as well. When they become equal to like Logitech, like or that type of equivalent, that's when you should get it. You shouldn't get it when they're overpriced. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I like the
do you
opinion.
have any do you have any experience with AVerMedia other
No,
than what I've said to you?
yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know. I've been mostly Elgato whenever I've been like capturing gameplay. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't. It's interesting, especially from consoles and stuff. I don't do much like. I mean, one, I don't really like stream much. If I'm like recording stuff, it's really mainly on my PC. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
just using OBS. But I mean, I do still have my Elgato. I actually have a PCIe Elgato. I think it's just a 1080 card. I don't think it's 4K card or anything. But yeah, I mean, I've had that PCIe Elgato card now for I don't know 2 or 3 years, something like that. Probably 3, maybe 4. I don't know, it's been a while.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's But I have that. I mean, every time if I ever need to record console stuff, which I'm sure at some point I probably will be, either whether it's for streaming or recording stuff, I probably will still be utilizing that. I mean, I don't know. I have no desire to really record like 4K stuff at the moment. I'm sure that'll change, but yeah, I mean, but it is really cool and interesting to see kind of not only what Elgato's doing, but also what AVerMedia is doing in the space, just pushing further
Yes.
along. So it's all
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think this might be the last forefront that people need to get to because you're only really going to have top of the line content creators that really need this.
Yeah,
Everything else is more of like if like, I got it because I wanted to record in 4K or I wanted to be able to stream in 4K, and I thought to myself, I was like, "Well, let's just future-proof everything.
Yeah.
Let's go a little bit over the top." You don't really need to do that, though. Like they're saying, there's still people waiting on DisplayPort capture. That really helps out with streamers that wanna do a pass-through DisplayPort so they can capture directly from, like, a gaming PC
Yeah.
and then have a streaming PC or a recording PC. But the thing is, like, we're getting to the point where you don't need a 2 PC setup. So that kinda destroys the idea of having these types of capture cards, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point, right? I think HDMI, like, it's so weird because HDMI was so behind with like refresh rates and all that. Now they've caught
Yeah.
up, so it's like, yeah, I think it's good for stuff like this, so you don't have to worry about using DisplayPort. But eventually, get to a point where it's kind of, I feel like most graphics cards, I know, mine's still mostly DisplayPort. But I don't know if that's changing or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's HDMI is caught up at this point, so it's interesting to see kind of more devices utilize it. And yeah, for Xbox it's interesting too, right? Because obviously they don't want to. I think they it's more convenient, certainly, I think, to just use HDMI rather than trying to have people adopt DisplayPort on consoles. So it made sense for HDMI to catch up. So now
It's very true,
at
yeah.
that point now, so yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, so I actually, the first part of the article, the first, like, 3 paragraphs, I essentially summed it up by giving the breakdown of what the different capture cards are. Let's jump into the second section where it says, "Why are HDMI 2.1 capture cards so important?"
Yeah,
So I'll read this, and then we'll jump down to the specs. Now, the big question of why HDMI 2.1 is so important comes down to the output of the current generation of consoles, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and graphics cards, and input on TVs. On the outside, these new gaming devices are capable of delivering up to 4K 120 hertz for consoles or 4K 240 hertz for the PC video signals, which is a big ask for pass through. No kidding. You degrade massively with pass through. So, some captured devices could meet some of these expectations, but there are always shortcomings or two where the consoles were concerned. Without HDMI 2.1, the captured device couldn't hit both 4K 120 Hz and HDR, which is key if you want to actually enjoy the graphics on the games, and support VRR on the pass through side. Creators needed to accept a lower visual experience on their end, even though the most they could output to the average streaming platform was 1080p 60 hertz or 1440p on some platforms. 1440p basically being YouTube, unless you're in another country and you speak another language and you're using another platform that's outside the US. So let's just go ahead and jump down into the stats or the specs. So this is going to be from the internal capture card, the Live Gamer ULTRA 2.1, the one that goes into your PCIe slot. It has a max pass through of 2160, 144 HDR or VRR, or a 1440p, 144. We're talking frames basically, or hertz. HDR, VRR. These are crazy numbers, by the way. This is a pass through, insane. So 1080p, 240 hertz, HDR, VRR. Just assume everything is HDR, VRR. If you're doing 1440p, you're going to hit 244 as well. If you do 1080p, you can actually get to 360.
utilize that's pretty nuts for a pass through.
Nutty.
You can go through 360. I
Very
mean,
crazy.
360. That's like the next jump. I feel like right now, so it's pretty.
I
Pretty
think
cool.
so too, yeah. In terms of like frames per second, I think it's all going to be about 1080p and as high the frames that you could possibly get for monitors.
Yeah.
That's basically the future. It's insane. Oh, this is quite an interesting take. Let's read this. So, why do some prefer PCIe capture cards? So, why do some people prefer the internal capture cards? Although at one point a PCIe capture card was preferred for its lower latency and faster data transfer rates, companies like AVerMedia have balanced out the differences thanks to USB 3.0. Now it all comes down to a personal preference whether you want the PCIe slot or the USB capture card. Obviously, the biggest benefit is not having to worry about having an available USB 3.0 port and plugging the capture card directly into the PC, which is worth it for a lot of people. Not having to provide external power or deal with the extra cables beyond the HDMI 2.1 input and output is also the reasons that someone might prefer a PCIe card. I'm exactly the same way. And not only that, but I'm sure this card has RGB. And one of the cool things, side note about AVerMedia, I bought their capture card, the 4K, and then I posted to Twitter, and they only had like a couple of options. They had like for the LEDs, right? They had like the rainbow like rotating, and it was always really really fast, and they had
Yep.
solid color, and the colors were very limited. And I like messaged them, I'm just like, dude, if you have RGB and all the rainbows, that means you have all the color palettes you need to get whatever color you want. I was like,
Yeah.
can we try something different? Like maybe do pulsing, maybe they're just like, don't worry, it's coming. And then like literally a month later, they sent an update. You download the update and it allow you to customize it any way you want.
It's pretty
So now I
sick.
have it like it's
Nice.
so sick. It's like I have it matching the rest of my gear inside my case. It's that's not really that's kind of a niche thing for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty cool, though.
Um,
The fact that they were just kind of on that already.
yeah. So the let's get into the other one. So the Live Gamer 4K 2.1 specs. Now, oh, I didn't skip. They have the formatting so similar that I thought I messed it up. My bad. So this is the one that's going to be the USB. Now this is the max. Let's see if it's actually the same. I want to. Okay, so we have a little bit more of a range in the resolution. Looks like.
Oh.
Yeah, it does. So the resolution is slightly different. So the max pass through is 2160 with 144 hertz, or the other resolution is 3440 by 1440p at 120 hertz, or 1440p standard 240 hertz, or standard 1080p by 360. So pretty similar. The HDMI 2.1 capture card generation is here and there. Is something to be said for AVerMedia being the first one out the gate. Without any noticeable hiccups in the design or capability of the software like OBS, the Live Gamer ULTRA 2.1 is currently the external capture card to beat for content creators. Admittedly, the value of HDMI 2.1 correlates to higher end tech, but that tech is now becoming more and more ubiquitous. Where it felt like a luxury to even have an HDMI 2.1 port on a TV, they are now becoming standard, which is freaking awesome. Yeah.
Pretty
Anyways,
sick.
probably the number one complaint people are going to have. It's the only one on the market that you can possibly get that I know of. I'm sure there's other people that have actually made one earlier than this, but on a main manufacturing scale that you can get readily available,
Yep.
it is expensive. That is what I was talking about at the beginning with AVerMedia. If they have, in my opinion, they have the best hardware you can get. They have an active software that's very, very helpful. But the problem they have is the price. The price is a lot, and they go on sale frequently, so you can check that out. And if you're wondering how much is the price, so it's $300 for the AVerMedia Live Gamer Ultra 2.1, and then it's $270 for the Live Gamer 4K 2.1. Yikes! So the USB version, 300, and the one that goes in the PCIe slot, 270. And I'll do a live look of the capture card that I currently have. This is the AVerMedia GC573. It's a 4K capture card. It is not HDMI 2.1. It is $200 on the AVerMedia website.
Interesting.
Let's see. I'm trying to find the one for Amazon. At Walmart, it's $250. And I don't actually see the one on. Oh, no, there it is. Here we go. It's on sale. It is 20% off, $200. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if you do the Elgato equivalent, they're usually comparable prices. I think the 2.1 is the reason why this is a little bit more, and it's newer technology. So
Yep.
yeah,
Sure. Hey, I give it to AVerMedia though. Trying to push that market, do some
Yeah.
interesting stuff and appeal to the more higher end.
Exactly. I do want to say one last thing before we jump over and we actually go to some layoffs. Spoiler, that's the next article.
Oh,
But what I do want to say is the problem with AVerMedia capture cards is they don't have like lower end resolutions and below 60 frames a second in terms of pass through. I know this because I tried to use an original Xbox on my 4K capture card and it would not work. I had to upscale the resolution and then use an EDID emulator to basically spoof that I had 60 frames per second when I do not.
That's
So,
crazy.
those devices, I mean, I could actually get it done with the EDIT emulator, and that was $20. So you can extra 20 on a capture card that's $200. I think you can handle it.
That's it's pretty nuts, I guess, but I guess it makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird. I think we talked about
Anyway. Hey, what's up? If you enjoyed that, remember to check out the full unedited version in the description below. Thanks. Remember to subscribe.